This video is a continuation of order of operations with fractions. We're focusing on the grouping and exponent portion. So previously we did multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Now we'll encounter those also, but we are adding in the exponents and grouping. So I'm going to, as always, write my GEMDAS because I have to use that as a map. Right? Once I end up with just multiplication and division or just addition and subtraction, I have to go left to right. Okay, so grouping. For 1a, do I see grouping? I do. So I am going to combine that. So I'm going to pull that out. I prefer when I'm working in fractions to take each thing that I'm working with and pull it out separately so that, this is addition. So I've got to find my common denominator, and it just helps me stay organized. So I'm going to do 1/6. I'm going to leave a little extra space. Now notice if I do that strategy of starting with my biggest denominator here is 6. Well, 2 goes into 6. So I don't have to do anything other than change the 2. Since 6 is what I want, I don't have to do anything with that one. So that's kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to do times. Well, to turn 2 to 6 using multiplication, I have to multiply by 3. So this becomes 1/6 plus 3/6, and that becomes 4/6. Okay, now I'm going to choose to not do reduction here. I might be able to, but it depends on the context where I'm going to be using this. And so this goes back to my comment of don't reduce until the very end. All right, so I am going to rewrite, I'll do it in orange, sure. 2/3, so that's just that. Parentheses, I'm still, having to deal with the next operation, which is multiplication. So I include everything but replace the 5/6 plus 1/2 with the 4/6 that I just calculated. All right, now I'm ready to multiply. So step 1 with multiplication of fractions is to look for cross-canceling. Well, I see that 2 goes into 2 and 2 goes into 6. So 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 6 3 times. Looking from numerator to denominator, I don't see anything else that can cancel. So I multiply across and I get 4. So 1 times 4 is 4. And 3 times 3 is 9. So that is my final answer. All right, if you want to see how you're doing with remembering and going through these processes, I would go ahead and pause the video, try B, and then check to see how you're doing. All right, I'm going to rewrite my GEMDAS again. I'll write it over here. Okay. So I don't have grouping. Yes, I have parentheses, but there's nothing I can combine inside the parentheses, so it's not actually grouping. So I'm going to check that. Exponent. I do have exponents, so I need to work with this right there. And that 1/6 will be included after I have simplified that exponent. All right, so now we're going back to how do we deal with exponents? We identify the base, which is 3/5. We are multiplying 2 of those together. So multiply by 3/5. That gives me 9/25. So now I take the 3/5 squared and I replace it with the 9/25. So those parentheses are still there, right? Because I still need the multiplication. So I have 1/6 parentheses 9/25. I'm multiplying, so I have to cross cancel if possible. Well, I have 3 goes into both 6 and 9. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now I multiply across and I get 3 over 50. Well, everything is now combined. I cannot reduce anything, so that is my final answer. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, try D, and then watch me go through it. Okay, step 1, writing GEMDAS. This is another thing where if you don't practice writing GEMDAS every single time when you get to a test, you are not going to remember it. That also means you're not going to remember using it as a map. Okay, so you have to be practicing those strategies anytime you do this. You will not remember it when you have the stress of a test happening. Okay, so G for grouping. Another example of, yes, I do have a grouping symbol, but there's nothing to combine inside of it. So I don't have grouping, but I do have an exponent. Okay. Oh, it looks like I jumped to D. That's okay. We'll do it out of order. We'll go and do C and E after this one. Okay. So exponents, right? I have to do that. So I am pulling out my negative 2/3 cubed. Well, my base is negative 2/3. I am multiplying 3 of those together. As usual, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what the sign of my answer is. Okay, so -2 times -2 is +4 times -2 is -8. So I know that that's going to be negative. So I have 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8 over 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9 times 3 is 27. So this right here replaces that. Okay, now I rewrite everything. 7/8 divided by 7 over 24 minus parentheses. Those parentheses do not disappear. Okay, you have to include those parentheses, otherwise you've eliminated multiplication, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so I am done with my exponents. Now I'm looking at division and multiplication. Well, I have my division sign right here, and I have 2 negatives right here, right? Well, a negative sitting next to anything is the same as multiplication by -1. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that multiplication. So that becomes positive, right? It becomes plus. All right, so I am going to do my division first, right? And then I'll go ahead and deal with that second part, okay? So division, I have 7/8. Division becomes multiplication. And then I have to flip my second fraction. Now that it's multiplication, I need to cross cancel. Well, 7 and 7, right? 7 goes into 7 one time. 7 goes into 7 one time. 8 goes into both 8 and 24. So 8 goes in one time. 8 goes into 24 3 times. Now I multiply across and I get 3 over 1. But what I have remaining is this, which is addition. So I do plus 8 over 27. So there is an addition sign between the parenthesis and the other fraction. That means you still have to have something, right? Addition that parenthesis does not mean multiplication. So be really careful with that. Okay, so now we're adding two fractions. Well, that means I need to get a common denominator. So this one's kind of nice. I mean, yeah, the denominator's kind of big, right? It's 27. I'm just shortening that a little so I have more space. So 1 times 27 gets me 27. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. Okay, so now I have 27 times 3, which is 81. So 81 over 27 plus 8 over 27. So I have 89 over 27. Now, if you're unsure whether that's fully reduced or not, we know that 3 goes into 27, and you can check and see whether 3 goes into 89. If it does, it can be reduced. If it doesn't, it can't. This is also an improper fraction because the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So make sure to double check the instructions. And if you can just leave it as an improper fraction, it won't say anything. It may say write your answers as a mixed number, or it might say write your answers an improper fraction. So just make sure that your final format is what you're being asked for. All right, so I'm writing GEMDAS again because I need my map. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one, and then turn it back on and see if we end up with the same thing. Okay, so grouping, I don't have. Exponents, I do. So I'm going to pull this part out. Okay, going to go ahead and figure out what that is. So my base is negative 1/3, negative 1/3, negative 1/3. Okay, so negative times negative is positive, times another negative is negative. So I know that my final answer is negative. Well, my final answer for this simplification. So now I have 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. All right, so this replaces the exponent. Those parentheses are still there. There's nothing that we've done has eliminated those. So we have 5/6 minus parenthesis negative 1/27. Okay, now two negatives make a positive, right? So I'm going to go ahead and show that. And that gives me what my last step is going to be. So I have 5/6 plus, I'm just cleaning up a little bit. Okay, now, as usual, I'm taking the biggest denominator, 27, and I'm going to start increasing it, right, and seeing what number 6 goes into. So 27 times 1 is 27. 6 does not go in. 27 times 2 is 54. Does 6 go into 54? Let's check. So you do 54 divided by 6, and that gives you 9. So 54 is my greatest common factor. Or, sorry, my lowest common denominator. Oof. All right, which is what I need. So I'm going to go here, and I know that 6 times 9 gives me 54, so I need to do that on the top. I know that 27 times 2 is 54, and I need to do that on the top. So now I'll draw my arrow, and I get 45 over 54, no reducing until the very end, plus 2 over 54. Draw my line, put my denominator, and then I add. So I get 47. And this is another one where if you're unsure whether that's fully reduced or not, I would take the 54 and find your prime factors and then see if any of those go into 47. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and we will do E. All right, I'm writing my GEMDAS. See what I mean in terms of you should be sick of writing GEMDAS by the time you're done with these, because you should be writing them every time because you want a nice clean map to use. Okay, so looking at E, once again I have parentheses, but there's nothing to combine in the parentheses, so I don't have grouping, so I'm done with that. I do have exponents. I have two exponents. I have this one and I have this one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and figure out the base of my first exponent, which is 2/5. So I have 2/5 times 2/5. So whatever I get here is going to replace that 2/5 squared. And then I have, so that's this part expanded. I have not included the negative yet. So here I get 4/25 parentheses, and I still have the negative. That is this one, right? And then I have -5/6 times -5/6. So that's this part. Okay, now notice this is multiplication right here. So I have parentheses. Negative times negative is a positive, so I have 25/36. I didn't have any addition or subtraction signs. I had negatives, right? But that means that everything is multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and apply my negative. So I get -4/25. And again, that negative can move, right? Numerator, the center of the fraction, or the bottom. When I'm multiplying, I like to have the negative either in the numerator or the denominator because it's easier to see that that negative gets applied once. And I'll show that to you in just a moment. So now I have 25/36. Now, actually, something that I'm going to do first is I'm going to figure out what the sign of my answer is going to be. So this is a negative fraction times a positive fraction. So that means that my answer has to be negative. Okay, so I've included that already. Now I cross cancel. So 25 goes into 25 one time. 25 goes into 25 one time. And then 4 goes into 4 one time. And 4 goes into 36 9 times. Now I already included the negative, so I just need to multiply across. So I have 1 times 1 is 1 over 1 times 9 is 9. And that is your final answer.